welcome to America House. So I am here with Keith Krach, the CEO of our Freedom 250 effort, and I'm going to introduce him for a bit, and he'll give short remarks, and then we'll have a Q&A on our plans for America's 250th birthday. So in America, we have this great tradition of great builders who grow up in the country's heartland and build things with their hands before building companies and legacies, and that is Keith. We've got one of them right here. So Keith grew up on his father's small Ohio machine shop, welding at the age of 12, before rising to become the youngest vice president in the history of General Motors, a great American company, and a pioneer in the industrial robotics industry. Keith later founded Ariba, creating the world's largest business-to-business e-commerce network, and went on to build DocuSign into the global standard for digital trust, transforming the company name into a verb. And during COVID, we all remember how reliant we were on DocuSign. You can thank Keith. Last year, he was awarded the 2025 Merchant Medal, the nation's highest manufacturing honor, recognizing the contributions that helped drive more than $4.5 trillion in global productivity. Here in Davos, he was also named a World Economic Forum Technology Pioneer in 2000. In public service, Keith led the American economic diplomacy as United States Undersecretary of State for Economic Affairs, so my counterpart for economics, and he built the Clean Network Alliance, a coalition of democracies committed to trusted technology, more important than ever. Today, he continues that mission of chairman of the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy and as CEO of Freedom 250, leading the nation's effort to deliver President Trump's vision for our 250th birthday, focused on renewal and the future. Please welcome Keith.
Thanks so much for that kind introduction. That was nice. And thank you all for being here. You know, the United States is approaching a milestone, and it comes once in a nation's lifetime, the 250th anniversary of our independence. You know, for Americans, this is a moment to reflect. I think for the world, it's a moment to take notice. Because the United States marks this moment. It says something important about how it understands its role in the world, and also its enduring commitment to freedom. So this is not just simply a celebration. It's an opportunity to renew confidence in freedom as a force for shared progress. You know, Ben Franklin famously said, democracy is a remarkable thing if you can keep it. And that reminder still matters. And democracy doesn't sustain itself automatically. It requires participation, trust, and shared responsibility. You know, from my time in public service and also Silicon Valley, I learned something very practical. Freedom matters. And, you know, when freedom exists, innovation follows. Where innovation flourishes, prosperity grows. And where prosperity is shared, stability becomes possible. You know, I also learned, particularly serving in government, that American leadership matters way far beyond its borders. And many nations represented here in Davos know that freedom, opportunity, and security are built through cooperation, alliances, and shared values. And that's not by accident. Today, those values are being tested. There are forces in the world that would prefer freedom to weaken our freedoms and to take away our institutions. And that's exactly what Freedom 250 is about and why it matters, not just for the US, but for the world. And at its core, the 250th is what we call the triumph of the American spirit. That's not a slogan, it's an idea. And the belief that people, given opportunity, can solve hard problems, build shared prosperity, and renew their societies together. And I think it's also important to understand here at Davos, that spirit is not uniquely American. It underpins strong democracies everywhere. Freedom 250 was created with that reality in mind. This is not a government campaign, and it's not a single event. It's a public-private movement. The Freedom 250 network that we're building is designed to mobilize participants in the United States, touching literally every American citizen, while engaging our allies, partners, and institutions around the world. And Freedom 250 creates practical ways to engage through culture, education, technology, entrepreneurship, and civic exchange, not just as spectators, but as participants. So for the international leaders here at Davos and in this room, the question is not how you observe our nation's 250th. The question is, how will you shape a moment that will influence American leadership for the next generation? And after being at Davos probably 20 times, I think there's no better place to begin than right here, where ideas become partnerships and partnerships become action. So I look forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. So I took office just recently, and I've begun traveling around the world in my State Department capacity for the first time. And one thing I've noticed is that no matter what else is going on, no matter what else we are engaging on in these bilateral sessions, whenever the discussion turns to Freedom 250, people brighten. And it's something that we and our international partners all look forward to celebrating together. What do you think it is about Freedom 250 that resonates so much for the world beyond just America?
Well, I think, it's a celebration of freedom, probably more than anything else. And that's something I think the world holds dear. If you're in a place, maybe it's authoritarian regime, if you whisper the word freedom, everybody's going to come running. And without freedom, there could be no prosperity. So this is a chance, I think, a unifying opportunity that could be used as a catalyst for our allies, for our partners, and role model that, and speak very proudly. It's about bringing pride back, with regard to freedom and in particular, the values that define a democracy. Things like respect for rule of law, respect for intellectual property, respect for human rights, respect for sovereignty of nations. Those are the values of democracy.
Very, very well spoken. And I think it's true. I mean, we see the brave people of Iran risking everything for freedom. And we see free people choose the same things over and over again. Free people choose democracy. Free people choose certain kinds of entertainment products. And they choose that spirit that's animated the United States when they're able to do so. So I guess my next question is, I'm new to government and you've left government and now you're running this private-public partnership, which is sort of you're really effectively bridging the strengths of the public and the private sector. But what did you learn during your time at the State Department about global leadership?
One of the things I said in my Senate confirmation hearing, they asked me what my overall strategy would be. And I said, it's really to accentuate three of America's strengths, and that is strengthen those partnerships with our allies and friends. The other is leverage the innovation and resources of the private sector. I think that's a big untapped one. And also really amplify American values, which are really democratic values, things that we talked about. And, an interesting thing that I could really see is that freedom, democracy, is an unnatural act. The law of physics is the bad king, the dictator, and the emperor. And you have to fight every day for that. And it was great to see when I was in public service what great civil servants, career foreign service officers, and the political participants in that, because you got to fight every day. And I think if it wasn't for the U.S., there'd probably be about 100 countries that would never taste an ounce of freedom. So, and I've got 5 children and 5 grandchildren, another one on the way. And so it's really doing it for them.
Well, we're all grateful. You used the phrase "the triumph of the American spirit," and I wonder, how you think that applies to people outside of the United States, and how do you think about the American spirit in the context of Freedom 250, which is really a global celebration?
Yeah, I think it's all about. I grew up in the Midwest. It's almost like those values of hard work, honesty, reciprocity, integrity, fairness. I think, the triumph of the American spirit. These founding fathers of the U.S., they put their life on their line, just like you see people doing around the world, particularly like in Iran right now. So that's the triumph of the American spirit, is it's good over evil. And if you think about, what our rivals are playing the long game, and when I say that, I mean authoritarian regimes. A game, it's a 4-dimensional game of chess, economic, military, cultural, diplomatic. And at its core, actually, at crossroads, it is technology. And they have very little respect for human rights, sovereignty of nations, intellectual property, all those things. And they use that against democracy to their advantage. And the key is that that's something that we should take advantage of. And that was one of the initiatives that I had as Under Secretary of State. We created the Clean Network Alliance of Democracies. It was based on the trust doctrine. And the trust doctrine was basically those values that in order to do business in this technology world, you've got to subscribe to those. So in essence, in one jujitsu move, we turned the table on them, and we weaponized the very principles that protect our freedoms.
In my lifetime, I feel like I've seen several surges of American innovation. We obviously had the manufacturing surge after World War II, which was a bit before my lifetime, but that's the auto manufacturing sector, which you played a huge role in. And then in the 2000s, we had the first .com boom, and now we have robotics, and we have advanced telecommunications infrastructure, and you've played a role in all of those, which just makes you such a valuable partner in a discussion about the public-private intersection between, American manufacturing and manufacturing in our allied nations and the quest for freedom around the world. Do you see any through lines that intersected in between those different economic chapters that have something to teach us about how economic development and freedom and prosperity converge today?
Yeah, I think my career has been in the robotics area. That's when, that's back when it was considered high tech in the early 80s. And then computer-aided engineering and software, Ariba, where we invented business-to-business electronic commerce that now does $7.3 trillion worth of transactions per year, commerce per year, more than Amazon and eBay combined. And then DocuSign, where I remember when we were building DocuSign, somebody said they used it, we just give them a hug. Now 1.5 billion users. But all those technologies were all about driving productivity. And productivity is the #1 driver of GDP. And that, the surrogate for that is increasing the standard of living. So for me, it's about value creation industries, leveraging, each one of those was at a different paradigm shift in terms of technology. Start off with NC controllers, and then, client-server architecture, and then the internet came out, and then cloud computing, DocuSign, and really accelerated through mobile. And now AI is such a big opportunity. So I think this is, that productivity drives that prosperity. And I think that's one of the things, for example, you're seeing over in Iran is that, hey, these guys are struggling economically. And, the prosperity, and they're craving the freedom.
Freedom 250, so Keith, as I mentioned, is the CEO of Freedom 250, and he's got some thrilling events planned. So we're gonna have a Great American State Fair, we're gonna have the UFC 250 fight, of course, a national prayer event, and many more. But this is a public-private effort. You know, one of America's great strengths is our private sector, along with our relationships with our allies and with organizations around the world. So if there are groups or people here at Davos who want to get involved, who want to celebrate our birthday with us, what can they do? What kinds of things should they be thinking about, and who should they reach out to?
Yeah, well, that's good news. Your imagination is your only limitation. And we would love to work with you. We've got toolkits for countries, states, companies, all of that. It's all about partnership. And what could be funner than marketing America, or really marketing freedom? So I think, let us know. There's going to be a lot of big events, as Sarah said, in the U.S. I know there's a lot of big events being planned overseas as well. But I think in terms of a cultural exchange, a lot with regard to education and history. And one of our main pillars is the innovation pillar. We're here to catalyze that, and feel free to contact us.
Excellent. So if someone had asked the founders in 1776, what does success look like for you guys? If they'd asked them that question they ask young entrepreneurs, I think it's safe to say that their proposition is performed, right? But looking back 10 years from now, what do you think success will look like for Freedom 250?
Well, I think it'd be renewed within the United States. I think it would be renewed pride in terms of those founding values and a greater understanding of that founding and the importance to carry that on. So we look at Freedom 250. It's not just celebration. It's really about the next 250 years. I think, outside the United States, really a renewed emphasis on democratic values, on freedom, on unity, and reciprocity, those kind of things. So that would be the ultimate definition, definition of success.
Well, let's hope that our birthday celebration can ignite and inaugurate some of that. And thank you so much for joining us today. And we really look forward to the week and look forward to celebrating 250 years of American excellence with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.